Hi,
Hi,
Vesna.
Steve.
Hi, Vesna.
I wanted I wanted to ask you, how did you begin your artistic journey, and how did you find your style?
Blimey, right. Well, I've always drawn or painted, um, but as a child, my I probably got it from my mum. She used to draw and paint, um, and we were encouraged or supported in that as a as a child. I was supported, so there's always been a sort of early encouragement, I suppose. Um, when I was about 12, there was an elderly man lived in our street, and he was an art teacher at at an expensive public school. I went to the local comprehensive, but he was he was really a really talented chap. He was an ex World War II navigator, um, a really accomplished artist in all mediums, really. And I got chatting to him, and he said, "Well, I'll teach you how to use oil paints." And so he set up a still life of three objects in his studio, which is his garage. He had as a studio, and and then at weekends and some evenings, go around and he'd have his easel, I'd have mine. We each had a bit of hardboard, which we put matte emulsion on. He showed me how to do that as a quick prime, and um, and then we drew and painted, and he taught me how to use oil paints. So um, that that was that stayed with me, really, that experience, and it's meant that I've never been afraid of oil paints, and I think I definitely would have been if I hadn't had that experience. So so that was kind of a seminal moment, really, for me, I think. But then I've gone on, had a career in other areas, done other things. I've always done the occasional bit of painting, maybe a bit of watercolor or something over the years, some drawings, occasional painting, but not very often. Um, and really, then as I in the last sort of 10 years or so, I've been finding more time to paint, and as my work has changed, I found myself with that much more time again, and I've evolved into this sort of I, I've got a room in the house now, which in this room here, which I use as a studio. So I've got somewhere to put the bits and pieces, and I've and a sort of a period of a few years, 5 years, maybe a bit more, of painting in oils has really allowed me to sort of develop my art. I think I sort of think of art as an evolution, not a revolution. It's you just gradually evolve your style. You try things and they work. You get used to the medium that you're using, whatever it is, and you get better and better at making that medium do what you want and creating the effects you want to create. And that's a lovely thing. It's really exciting to go through that process. So my style is well, I, I described it in a bit of literature, when you have to write things about yourself, like an artistic bio, as exaggerated realism. And I wasn't sure whether that, someone from with a an academic degree in an art related subject would sort of look at that and go, what is he talking about? But that's how it feels to me. It's realism, but it is slightly exaggerated. So I like looking carefully at the lights and darks and the shadows and the values, and then trying to apply uh, the color ranges to that. And it always is a slightly exaggerated version of reality, I think. So I use that term. It's how I feel about it, but it might be sort of widely derided as rubbish in the academic art community. I don't know, but that's how I feel about it. So um, it's realism of sorts. Um, I've really kind of stayed with flowers and as a main thing, but I can dip into most things, and be, and enjoy it. Um, I love the florals though, because whilst it is realism in of themselves, they're really abstract. So this is a hydrangea behind me. But when you start looking closely at any element of a flower, it is quite abstract. It's gorgeous the way the light plays on it, the way the colours blend through. They are amazing things. And at a sort of perhaps quite a childish level, they all those things that are quite amazing. They come from tiny seeds, or a bit of a clump of brown nothingness in the earth, a tuber or a seed or whatever, and they this is what they produce. It's quite amazing. So the other thing that I sort of think about when I paint like that as well is it's a moment in time. So if you've got something gorgeous like that picture there behind me, I mean, I have made some artistic changes, but just as a point of sort of principle, that is a moment in time. That moment will never exist again like that. It won't. It's gone. There'll be many like it, but I find that quite appealing that you've just taken, that's a snapshot of a beautiful thing, uh, just for that moment, and then it's gone. So I think they're amazing. I know that there'll be people out there who would consider sort of painting flowers a bit twee, and I do get that, but I think they're amazing, and I really enjoy painting them. So uh, I don't suppose any of that will change. My technique and style might evolve a little bit and change, but fundamentally, I think that's what makes the heart glad, really. And Yeah, and I love sitting here in front of it and trying to make it uh, something, a permanent record of that thing. The other thing I'd also say in terms of technique is um, the way I paint in particular as well, or and draw for that matter. Not that I do that much drawing, but is that art teaches you to look. So um, you have to look and you have to see to properly reflect on the canvas. So there's a hydrangea. Well, not that this is a fact worth knowing, but I can tell you that the little bits in the middle of hydrangeas aren't one solid thing. Some of them have 4 in, some have 5 in, some have 2 in. It, it's so. In fact, I was with my wife, and she pointed, but she says, "Is that a hydrangea?" Because it did look a bit similar. And I looked at it, and I said, "It's definitely not a hydrangea." And I don't know what it is, but I know it's not because I've just spent 50 hours looking at one. So it does teach you to look, and
Yeah.
I think there's a nice thing about that. Sometimes you just
Yeah.
sit and you spend time looking at something, and thinking about its structure and how the light plays on it and how the light changes on it, depending on. So I just think learning how to look is a great thing, and I think that has definitely helped with the evolution of my style, I would say.
Yeah.
So a long answer
And
to a short question, but
yeah,
there you go.
but how did you find that the flowers were your style or the theme you wanted to paint? How did you find it?
That's Yeah, that's a good question. I I think there's like a lot of artists would probably say, there's an attraction to the natural world. So going back a bit, I'd be equally as happy perhaps to just be tinkering with a landscape or something, an animal maybe even. Um, so there's a sort of there's this broader attraction to the natural landscape. Um, but but flowers in particular are a very colourful and intricate representation of that in an odd way. So in terms of the sort of the colours and and light's such an important thing. I'm always taking reference pictures whenever I come across anything that looks gorgeous. We were on holiday recently, and there was some frangipani, and it looked beautiful. And I've filled my phone up with pictures of it. Hardly anything else, just those things. So, um, but but so it's back to that thing. You see things that are visually appealing, and you think, "Oh, that might be a nice thing to paint," and then you start thinking about angles and how close up and how big the painting might be, and what it might look like, and colours and shadows, and all those things combined sort of pull me towards the floral elements. Really, it's still out there. You're outdoors invariably looking at things, and you see things that you like, and you notice things, and you have that balance in your mind. Is that something I'd want to paint? What could I do with that? How can I put that on a canvas and compose it in such a way that it would make a lovely image? And I like that process. It's a nice way to let the mind sort of meander, really. And yeah, so that keeps pulling me back to flowers, but it can be anything. I mean, on my feed, there's a picture of Mr. Potato Head in a box. It was a fun thing to paint, and I really enjoyed the blending on it, and it worked quite well as a thing. So it can be anything. It just is more flowers than anything else. And the natural world is an amazing thing. And I suppose the last thing I should say is sort of why flowers. I mean, in some ways, they are a metaphor for the fragility of the planet we live on. I mean, it's a bit more serious, but there's an element there that I do feel. So these pictures are transitory; they're a moment in time. But the plants and nature have their own pressures. So you're recording something that's of value to the natural world, and it makes you think about the fragility of that world and our responsibilities in terms of being a good steward for it. And clearly, in many ways, we're failing in that regard at the moment as a people. But so there is that sort of that bit when you've got this lovely, beautiful thing that you're creating, and it just highlights the fragility of it all, I think, in some way. But yeah, fundamentally, I just think they're gorgeous images in good light.
Yeah, thank you.
I'm sorry if I've gone on a bit there.
Sorry?
I'm sorry if I went on a bit. But
no, it's okay, because artists love to hear how other artists think. This is a very important, because we are all so different. Every artist is unique. And for every artist, there will be something else, So it's really interesting to hear how other artists think, because it's really different from, let's say, my point of view. For every artist, it's something else, and it's nice also remembering that moment when you said, yes, this is it, this is for me.
So, what moment? I think it's always been for me. It's just, was that your question? When was it for me? When did I have that moment?
Yeah, when did you know that the flowers were your thing,
So I've always known that art is a thing that I love. Even though I've done very different things from a career perspective, it's always been something that I've really appreciated, and having the time to do it's such a privilege. The flower bit in particular, I don't see it quite as sort of. I think that's part of the evolution. I tried doing some floral elements which I found attractive, and then I realised that I could frame them in a different way, and so I did some slightly different things, and they really worked, and I really loved the outcome. And it's just sort of moved through there. I mean, there could come a time where I go, do you know what, I've had enough of florals now, I'm going to do something else. But honestly, my gut instinct is that that's probably not going to happen. But you can never say never. You don't know. You don't know. So yeah, I don't know. I think it's something that I fell into, and I just love it. Yeah.
Yeah, this is the most important thing, right?
I think so. Yeah, it really is, and I think that's I think that's what allows us to produce good work. If you really like it,
Yeah.
you know, let's
Yeah.
face it, there aren't many artists out there doing it for the money, are there? There's only doing it because you
I
love
don't
doing
know.
it. There'll be a few, I expect, but most of us, you know, work hard and enjoy our successes when they come. But you know, it's not. There aren't many millionaire artists out there. Normally, we're just sort of you speak to other artists, and they're some of them are doing okay, and good luck to them. But some people are finding it difficult, and you have to supplement it with other things. So it's so why do we do it? I think for most of us, it's not the money; it's the love of the arts.
Yeah. Thank you, Steve. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you, Vesna. Lovely to talk to you. Cheers.
Bye bye.
Bye.